Hi guys, welcome back to a video. I was a little bit hesitant on making a video like this for a while now, and I just felt compelled. Despite that, I really just want to move away from quackology and the quackologist. Um, I'm just I'm gonna maybe make this a documentary series on the Gematria community, the rise and fall of it, or just in general, where it was and where it is now. First off, I'm known as the Honey Badger. For a while, I was Wisconsin's auditor, Truth Vibration podcast, and now I'm known as the Badgering Podcast. Where I'm shifting more to my podcast once again, like I had before, Truth Vibration. Due to the overwhelming amount of, I guess, hatred. This is what happens every time I try to stop exposing quackology and the quackologists, and then they like to come out of the woodwork and harass me. Just do their games, right? I'll explain later in this video. For every movement, there's always a villain, and the main villain here is Zachary K. Hubbard. To share a little background on Zach, we're gonna kind of dive into, I guess you can say, his history. And according to him, he was a school teacher, an accountant, a business owner. He's married to a Burmese woman named Doibu Marip, currently a pharmacist at Yakima Neighborhood Health Services, who has a doctorate degree in pharmacology. She's a Burmese refugee who was adopted by Adriana Gallagher, a big tech individual known for using human lips to do like English words. Anyway, this is just a little background on him, and for every story, there's always a villain, right? And a villain usually has a good story. A good villain, anyway. Darth Vader, the Joker, Vegeta, Stryker, Megatron, Thanos. These are great villains that we all understand. And where did this guy, Zachary K. Hubbard, become a villain? Has he always been a villain? Or is this just recent? Well, let's dive into that, shall we? Zach has gone by many names. At first, he started on YouTube as Zachary K. Hubbard for a while. He's done a couple. Once he was exposed by the All for Truth network, he had to change his name to Gematria Fake News. He did a couple of offshoot channels like Free to Find Truth, All for Truth, Zachary on the Corner. But then he began Gematria Fake News in about 2019. Now this is where I believe the villainy really started more. He was part of he always seemed to always have trouble working with others, especially when money's involved. And this is a problematic thing with a lot of people. When money is involved, it causes a lot of division. Eventually, he found a word that seemed to stick, even to this day, that seems to help him get away with things and neutralize his accountability. And he calls people that speak out against him trolls. And what he's been able to notoriously do is shut down people, gaslight them, slander them, and delete them and block them. And after he does that, he calls them out, and then they can't show up because they're blocked. making him look like the victor. It's a Lex Luthor type concept. Where do I fit into this story? Am I the hero? Am I the antagonist, the protagonist, or the anti-hero? I would say Zachary K. Hubbard is a great villain, or he was a great villain. Right now, he's an overused villain. He's a villain who has fallen, been exposed, lost over and over again, and continues his villainy ways for absolutely no reason. So what is this villain of Gematria Effect news? Well, let's dive into what Gematria really is. Gematria is part of the Hebrew language. It was a numbering system within the language before there was, the 1 through 9 numbers, or the Arabic numerals. And a lot of languages had this concept. And Gematria is this plus sacred geometry, and it's like an index in the Torah, in the Bible. So there's footnotes or numbers at the end of passages to find passages in the Torah and Bible, and Gematria is essentially used this way as an index. So it's really not as complex of a system. Now what Zach does is that he uses this concept and tries to apply English into it, but unfortunately English and Hebrew just have way too many differences, so therefore it wouldn't even be called English Gematria. It would be called English arithmancy or onomancy or cryptography. And because Gematria is specifically to Judaism and Hebrew. Anyway, Zach has made a decent living off of essentially grifting off of people over the years and shadow banning and lying and deceiving his audience into believing in a narrative that Jesuits are running the world, scripting news, sports, weather, etc. Now, how I don't fully disagree with this, that there is some level of dishonesty within the mainstream and within our own government and corporatocracy. It's really hard to believe that a little group, or what Zach would like to call a secret society, which can't be much of a secret if he knows about it. Next is the undeniable code that exposes the Illuminati and all of its subcategory societies like Masons and Jesuits and so on. Well, if this was the case, and this was the reality of things, unfortunately Zach wouldn't be here. Because a lot of people who are going to expose, or were going to expose people, they never made it. So if this person, Zach, really did expose the code of the Illuminati and how it's being used to manipulate society, he would be gone. And he wouldn't be able to be here today, especially if he's quote-unquote earning Vegas and casinos of money. He would be quickly dealt with. We can all admit this, and most people are mature enough to understand this. Now, let's dive into his community. Was I a part of this community? Kinda. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I was in a lot of different truth and conspiracy theory communities, not just this one. But for some reason, these people thought I had a heavy hand and I was somehow Gematria like them. And how I did support Zach in his endeavors, I support other people as well. But, I grew older and wiser and just see that these are just nothing but grifters online who are just trying to make money off of desperate people looking for answers. And I'm not going to say I was super desperate looking for answers, but I noticed that this world is not what it seems to be, and it was nice, and it is always nice to be around like-minded people. Now, unfortunately, his community has really dissolved into a network of cultists, cult-like-minded people. And these cult-minded people are very divisive, they're very antagonistic, they're very argumentative and egotistical. A lot of them are liars and slanderers. They're abusers, emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental abusers, narcissists, and just downright evil. And these are channels, I'll just go by their channel names for now. King Richard TV, formerly Truth Does Not Exist, now Spamwave. Itachi Decodes, now Little Slugger. Amy Crack Their Code or Crack Their Code. Daria the Gematria Nerd. Frank the Truth Tank. Gematria 32. Green Arrow and Sage Zero have really become the pinnacle of quackologists. These are the individuals who dox, slander, antagonize, death threat, and just literally trying to harm anybody who opposes Zach or questions him and his guru-ness. Zach's initial plan was to fully submerge the Illuminati and expose the code that they're using in a ritualistic way, quote unquote. And to do this, he would like to start a news team or a studio. So his grit for a long time was promote me, buy my books and merchandise, and support me going around outside and yelling at people about his code. And people got on board with it. Man, this seems like the first genuine guy that isn't about to rip people off like many before him. Now he's been doing this since 2018, and now it's 2026, and he's got a lot of properties. He makes plenty of money, and he has the resources necessary to buy a Gematria Effect news studio. The problem is that I don't think this was ever his initial plan, or I don't think he ever thought it would have gotten as big as it did. Zach's main income is Patreon subscribers. At one point, he had about 7,800 Patreons, and now he's down to 2,600. And tiers ranging between $1 to $100, depending on what the tiers are, and one of the tiers being at $100 is to support him traveling, which he hasn't done in nearly 3 years. So how did this guy become the main villain of the story? Well, we have to go back to August of 2023. Actually, a little bit earlier. We have to go back into 2021. I lost my job as an LPN, but before I did, I had his number games book, and I was working as an LPN at a local clinic in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And after losing my LPN in my job due to not taking the vaccine, I told Hubbard this. And I told him, well, I came into work one day and they wouldn't let me through the door and even to my desk. They threw away a bunch of my textbooks, including your book, and they're only going to give me a little money back for it. And I told him, and guess what? He made me buy his book again in a hoodie. And I just thought, man, that's really kind of disingenuous. Like, you do preach it, you give away all this stuff, but do you really? Anyway, fast forward, I think I left his community for about 7 or 8 months due to that reason. And I came back, said, well, whatever, it's just water under the bridge. August of 2023, and those cuts one began really calling them out. I'm like, Angel Baby called them out. Yeah, right, the Matrix at this time was kind of hesitant. He was kind of like, I don't know. And then, there's still Sports Gematria, which I was iffy about too. And Arthur and these other channels that have called them out. And then, Rambo leaving. And after watching that, I was just like, whoa, like, what is going on? And after hearing Cut's testimony, I finally looked into it myself. And I found out that Zach is just another NPC, just another plant, just another... He's he's the villain. And, he was a secret villain all along. And I was shocked. So I dove more into it and called him out and debated him and questioned all his sources. And of course, he does what any cult leader would do, gets his cultists to come after me. And after the unnecessary harassment by his Amy Cracker Code, Daria, Frank the Truth Tank, Itachi, the Three Dicks, the Three Richards, T. Daney. I had no qualms with these people. And it became meme wars, it became music videos, and a lot of research debunking quackology to the point where it's more debunked than any conspiracy movement that's ever been debunked. But there's literally nothing to it. And then next is we are these paid for troll information agents. And I really don't understand where this comes from, but this comes from where Zach gaslights conspiracy-minded people because they're paranoid and they think that the government hires people to troll. I mean, I get it. The government wastes a lot of tax money on stupid stuff, but I mean, That would be the dumbest thing the government is, like, even more dumb than these gender identity study classes. Um, paint, like, why would they even waste their money to troll Zach? Like, why wouldn't they just, do him in? This doesn't make sense. Anyway, of every classic villain, the villain eventually he loses, or he becomes an anti-hero. Sometimes the villain even succeeds, or the heroes fail. Well, Zach's a villain that has failed relentlessly. But the problem is that he refuses to accept his failure as defeat, which can be admirable or even prideful. But it goes deeper. It stems to his relationship with who he calls Sweet Lady. And Zach's own ego is so bad that he can't, I guess you can say, accept that he's just completely and utterly in the wrong, in that he doesn't think the person that he's with won't love him unless he makes a lot of money, which is probably true. Meaning, she's a gold digger. Meaning that anything Zach wants to do or can do for any type of movement will never happen, and it's because of her. And he will cuck, simp, shill, gript, be a charlatan, slander, lie, cheat, and steal, to help her. This is fundamentally where the villain just is losing, I guess you can say, character development and resolve. At this point, the villain has to make a choice. Does he quit his villainy ways to be with the one he loves, or would the one he loves leave him and ultimately destroy the villain at his own core more than any of the heroes? Now, I'm not going to say I'm a hero. I'm more like a Deadpool. I'm an anti-hero. I'm a villain nor the hero. I'm kind of in the middle, where I have my own agenda, but I'm not going to push my agenda onto others. Because fundamentally, that just is not coherently sane or profoundly or reasonably accurate by any fundamental means of beyond measure. At the end of the day, the gematria that Zach does really has no meaning or any merit or value to nothing. Because at the end of the day, it's more important to learn paper crochet. It's more important to learn to weld or learn how to do electricity or learn carpentry or learn candle making or learn how to cook or exercise. Learn how to use the AI. Learn to write and read. Unfortunately, the Gematrians and their cult can and will never ever produce viable evidence on where English Gematria began and where the four-base cipher system originated from. And Zach can't even claim that for himself based off of the merit that Gematria is considered ancient. And English is it's still a relatively new language when it comes to civilization, but it's over 500 years old, so there's been a lot of time for someone to implement this system and code it for propaganda use. And there should be some evidence somewhere out there for this. Unfortunately, there's not. Anyway, this might be a documentary series on the villainous ways of the Gematria community. It might not be. But every villain needs to have a great ending. And unfortunately, Zach's ending of a villainy is equivalent to these LGBTQs. This guy doesn't have a Darth Vader ending. I mean, Darth Vader, one of the most iconic villains, ends up becoming the hero. Vegeta, Dragon Ball's most iconic character and most developed anime character of all time, goes from a villain to an anti-hero to a hero. Well, the Joker, who is just a pure villain and evil to the bottom of his core, is just a great villain in general, and just human, but able to give Batman and the Justice League a lot of headaches due to his psychotic and unpredictable nature. Zack at one point was maybe even on par with Lex Luthor, an evil genius. But after being exposed, ridiculed, made fun of, shot down, I mean, every community just tears him apart. Yeah, Truth, Jim Bob, Andrew Wilson, Ava the G, Mooncakes, me, Cuts, Rambo, The Illusion, Sports Gematria. There's just so many that have really exposed Zach's villainy and his cult's malicious intent. And quite honestly, I do believe that it would actually he will succeed beyond any of these conspiracy channels if he came out and redeemed himself. He will get back to averaging 20,000+ views. He came out and said, sorry, this has been my intent, and this is why my intent is this. And I've thought about it long and hard, and I'm no longer going to do the sports. I'm just going to do what's right. And I'm going to slow down on the Gematria. I'm going to apologize to Angel, Truth Vibration, Cuts, all the Chaotic, all these people. And I was wrong. And this isn't Gematria. There is a code, I think. And I think that we need to explore on this code. And I need to apologize to these people who I've alienated and slandered over the years. And this is where the villain can really become a protagonist in the story and get a redemption, a second chance. Like Loki or Deadpool or Vegeta or Darth Vader. Unfortunately, due to egomania and narcissism, this person's too far gone. And his trolling, evil, relentless villainy would continue to hinder research within the community until the day he puts his channel to rest. Other than that, thank you for listening. Hopefully there might be a part 2. If you do want a part 2, let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share. And let me know. Thank you.